Gemini 7 here, Houston, out of your 8.
Loud and clear. 7, go ahead.
Bogey at 10 o'clock high.
This is Houston. Say again, 7.
I said we have a bogey at 10 o'clock high.
Roger. Gemini 7, is that the booster or is that an actual sighting?
Oh, what? Okay, we have several, looks like the 3 up here, actual sighting.
You have any more information, estimated distance or size?
And we have very, very many, looks like hundreds of little particles going by the west out about 3 to 4 miles.
For decades, people dismissed these stories as conspiracy theories. Claims that astronauts saw unexplained objects near the moon were treated as rumors, distortions, or science fiction. But now, newly released classified U.S. government files contain astronaut transcripts, mission discussions, and official records describing strange objects, unexplained flashes, and even a bogey tracked during spaceflight. Tonight, we're examining what was actually documented during humanity's missions beyond Earth. On May 8, 2026, the United States government released a new batch of declassified, unidentified anomalous phenomena records through a Pentagon transparency initiative. The archive contained more than 160 files, including military reports, astronaut debriefings, mission transcripts, photographs, and videos tied to decades of unexplained sightings. For many within the disclosure community, the release marked another major shift in official public acknowledgement. What immediately drew attention was the inclusion of Apollo-era material. For years, UFO researchers argued that NASA astronauts had quietly encountered unexplained objects during missions to the moon. Skeptics often dismissed those claims as exaggerations or misunderstandings. But inside the newly released records were official transcripts and technical debriefs describing unusual lights, unidentified objects, and strange visual events witnessed beyond Earth's atmosphere. One of the most discussed documents involved Apollo 11. During a post-mission technical debrief, Buzz Aldrin reportedly described observing unusual objects and intermittent flashes during the historic 1969 lunar mission. According to the released records, the crew considered several explanations at the time, including discarded spacecraft components or reflected light, but the events remained notable enough to document in official mission discussions. The Apollo 11 material also revived one of the oldest mysteries in astronaut folklore. For decades, rumors circulated that the crew witnessed unidentified craft near the moon. Many versions of the story became distorted over time, including false claims attributed to Neil Armstrong. NASA and several researchers later stated there was no confirmed evidence of alien spacecraft, yet the persistence of these stories kept Apollo 11 permanently linked to UFO mythology. Another mission suddenly returned to public focus, Gemini 7, in 1965. Newly highlighted transcripts included astronauts referring to a bogey moving nearby in space. Within military aviation terminology, the word often means an unidentified object or unknown target. The exchange became one of the most frequently cited astronaut UFO incidents in history, particularly after the term resurfaced in modern disclosure discussions. The Gemini 7 bogey conversation has remained controversial for decades. Some researchers interpret the exchange as evidence the astronauts observed something extraordinary. Others, including aerospace writer James Oberg and astronaut Frank Borman himself, argued the object was likely debris associated with the mission hardware. Even so, the transcript's survival inside official records gave the incident renewed life after years buried inside archival material. The newly released files also revisited Apollo 12. Among the records were photographs taken from the lunar surface that appeared to show several unexplained lights or objects positioned above the moon's horizon. Analysts within the UFO community quickly circulated the images online, arguing they represented structured craft. Government officials, however, stopped short of assigning any extraterrestrial explanation to the photographs. Perhaps the most visually striking material came from Apollo 17, humanity's final crewed mission to the moon in 1972. Inside the transcripts, astronauts Ronald Evans, Harrison Schmitt, and Eugene Cernan described bright objects and drifting particles visible outside the spacecraft windows during portions of the mission. The descriptions were unusually vivid and in some places surprisingly emotional for technical flight communications. Ronald Evans described seeing very bright particles or fragments drifting outside the spacecraft as the crew maneuvered. Harrison Schmitt then compared the view to the 4th of July, describing numerous bright objects visible from his window. The released transcript immediately became one of the most quoted sections from the entire disclosure archive, because of the clarity and excitement present in the astronauts' own words. Eugene Cernan also reportedly described intense flashes resembling distant train headlights. Another portion of the material referenced a bright flash observed near the lunar crater Grimaldi. Whether these were ice particles, reflected sunlight, electrical effects, or something genuinely unknown remains unresolved. But for disclosure researchers, the significance was simple. NASA astronauts had officially documented the experiences in mission records. Accompanying the Apollo 17 transcripts was a photograph showing 3 bright points positioned in a triangular arrangement above the lunar surface. Some analysts argued the image may depict a physical object rather than a photographic artifact. Others cautioned that space photography often produces lens reflections, debris trails, and exposure distortions. The government release itself offered no final conclusion regarding the image's origin. The release did not limit itself to the Apollo era. Additional files described unexplained military encounters from later decades, including incidents over the Middle East, East Asia, and restricted airspace near military operations. Some reports involved glowing spheres, erratic flight paths, or objects displaying acceleration patterns witnesses claimed exceeded known aircraft performance. Many cases remained officially unresolved within the released documents. Pentagon officials emphasized that the files did not confirm extraterrestrial life. The stated purpose, according to the release, was transparency. Investigators noted that some sightings may involve drones, atmospheric effects, classified technology, sensor errors, or misunderstood objects. Yet officials also acknowledged that a portion of incidents lacked sufficient data for definitive explanation, leaving the cases categorized as unidentified. Within hours of publication, disclosure researchers began comparing the new material against decades of leaked transcripts, astronaut interviews, and independent UFO investigations. What stood out was not necessarily proof of alien visitation, but the consistency across multiple missions and generations. Astronauts repeatedly described unusual lights, flashes, moving objects, or unexplained visual events occurring far beyond Earth's atmosphere. The astronaut connection has always carried unusual weight in the UFO discussion. Pilots and astronauts operate in environments requiring constant observation, technical discipline, and precise reporting. Because of that, many researchers argue astronaut testimony deserves serious consideration. Critics counter that even highly trained observers can misinterpret reflections, debris, lighting conditions, and optical effects in the extreme visual environment of space. For many viewers, the most unsettling aspect was not what the files proved, but what they suggested. The records showed that astronauts openly discussed unexplained observations during missions humanity considers among its greatest achievements. The moon landings were not presented only as triumphs of engineering, but also as moments where crews encountered phenomena they could not confidently identify in real time. As additional files are expected to be released over coming months, researchers continue examining every transcript, photograph, and debrief for overlooked details. Whether the explanations ultimately prove mundane or extraordinary, the disclosure process has permanently altered public perception. Official archives, once dismissed as rumor, now openly contain astronaut discussions of unidentified objects observed during missions to the moon itself. A detail worth noting is how often ordinary spaceflight conditions can create confusing visual phenomena. Ice particles, insulation fragments, sunlight reflections, and static discharges can appear deeply unusual against the black backdrop of space. NASA engineers and skeptical investigators frequently point to these factors when reviewing astronaut UFO reports. Even so, many cases remain debated because some observations do not fit neatly into simple explanations. Within the UFO and disclosure community, astronaut sightings have long occupied a special category. Unlike anonymous witness accounts, these reports involve individuals trained to operate in some of the harshest and most controlled environments imaginable. Because of that, Apollo and Gemini mission stories became foundational material for generations of researchers, documentary filmmakers, radio hosts, and disclosure advocates throughout the late 20th century. Whether these incidents ultimately prove extraterrestrial contact or not, the newly released files confirm something important. Astronauts genuinely reported unexplained events during humanity's missions beyond Earth. Strange lights, unidentified objects, and unusual visual phenomena were documented inside official records for decades. For many, that realization alone changes the conversation. The moon may not have been as empty or as quiet as history originally suggested. Perhaps the most enduring part of this story is the possibility that humanity encountered mystery at the very edge of its greatest achievement. As more records continue emerging, the line between dismissed rumor and documented history grows increasingly thin. Whatever the final explanation may be, the questions remain alive. Thank you for tuning in to They Are Watching Us, and a huge thank you to all you amazing watchers out there for continuing to look up at those mysterious skies.
Very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. I'm going to step off the limb. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you're as into UFOs and all that cool disclosure stuff as I am, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. It really helps me keep the good content coming your way on this super fascinating topic. Seriously, I appreciate it so much. Catch you later.